In the realm of preventing and countering violent extremism, rigorous evaluation practices play a pivotal role in shaping effective strategies. In today's Indeed podcast, I speak with Sophie Ebbecke, a research associate at the Global Public Policy Institute in Berlin. Sophie provides insights into the PrEval Initiative, focusing on advancing evaluation methodologies within PCVE, civic education, and democracy promotion. Through international expert surveys spanning 14 countries, the initiative examines diverse perspectives on evaluation practices, aiming to identify key actors, funding mechanisms, and methodological tools currently utilized in the field. Despite challenges such as limited funding and varying levels of evaluation expertise among practitioners, there is a growing consensus on the necessity of enhancing evaluation awareness and capabilities. By leveraging insights from adjacent disciplines and fostering a community of practice, the initiative seeks to refine approaches and strengthen the impact of PCVE efforts globally. Please enjoy episode 6 in the Indeed podcast series on learning from the PrEval experience with Sophie Ebbecke. Welcome to the Indeed Knowledge Series video interviews on evidence-based evaluation and evidence-based policy and practice in the field of preventing and countering violent extremism and de-radicalization. I'm joined by Sophie Ebbecke. Sophie, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's very nice to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining. Sophie, you work with the Global Public Policy Institute in Germany and the PrEval Initiative, which is a very exciting development in the field of PCVE and evaluation. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing there?
Yeah, of course. So PrEval is a research and transfer project that looks at evaluation practices for extremism prevention, civic education, and democracy promotion in Germany, and really aims to develop new formats and redesign already existing formats and structures to strengthening evaluation and quality assurance practice in these fields. My team is part of a small subsection of the project that focuses on international monitoring. So while most of our colleagues are looking at what is going on in Germany, our team at the Global Public Policy Institute, in close collaboration with the Peace and Research Institute in Frankfurt, is looking more at everything that's happening internationally.
And that must be incredibly interesting. So you've had the chance to look at what's being done in the field and practices from other countries.
Yes, so we recently conducted an international expert survey because we were curious to find out what is happening in the PCVE field and also related fields. So also thinking about initiatives that look at fostering social cohesion or strengthening resilience for communities. And we were really interested in better understanding what evaluation actors are involved. So who requests evaluation, who conducts evaluation, but also how is evaluation being financed in these fields, what are maybe innovations, what other fields could we be looking in for inspiration, what are the tools and methods that are currently being used, and also what are challenges and needs that are currently not being met.
I want to really appreciate that approach that you've taken. It's something that we've been speaking about in Indeed as well. As we know, the field and the practice of evaluation within PCV and de-radicalization is still relatively new, and it is a reality that there is work being done in other areas, in social cohesion and inclusion, in the peace and conflict field, and many others, and an opportunity to learn from those experiences and practices to help us think through and reflect what are we doing in our field, and how can we learn from some of that to also improve practice here.
Yeah, I think one thing that comes up often in discussions about conducting evaluation specifically for PCVE is that it's very challenging, methodologically speaking, but also it's often considered a burden. Maybe there's a lack of awareness for the value. And we really found value in also expanding the horizon. Our experts are indicating there are related fields where we could seek for inspiration. We've had discussions on this, including, for instance, public health, but also criminology. They have a much longer history of evaluation in the respective fields, and also deal with similar challenges and also similar target groups. So for us, really, expanding our view to other fields, but also internationally, because that's what we're doing. So not only looking at Germany, but also what other countries are promoting innovative practices or good practices can be really beneficial in our opinion.
Our colleague Stefan Kloss did the same in the Indeed project when we were looking at trying to understand the state of evidence-based evaluation, where it's come from, how it's practiced, and again, looking at fields of criminology, at social work and practices in other domains and in other countries. Now, you've told us a bit about the research that you carried out. Can you share with us what were some of the challenges and the needs that you identified in the field?
Also, maybe give a bit of a background on the research that we conducted. As I already indicated, it was an international expert survey. Mm-hmm. So we looked at 14 different country contexts across the globe. We tried to be as broad as possible in the selection to really also account for context-specific nuances. And we asked experts to give their personal, individual assessment as experts on PCVE and also having experience with evaluation in this field. So this is not a representative official record of all evaluation practices, but rather individual collection of expert assessment. Mm. And some of the challenges that came up, and I think that's not going to be surprising to you as someone who has experience in this field, is, for instance, again, methodological challenges that I already mentioned, but also really structural issues, including lack of sufficient and sustainable funding. Mm.
And another one that you've spoken to us about in the past is also the capacity in the field and the need for capacity building. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
So again, not something that probably comes as surprising, but this is really something that was echoed once again by our experts, is that many practitioners, but also decision makers, really still lack a fundamental understanding for the value of evaluation, but it's also about gaps in evaluation expertise and experience. So really there's also a need to provide more capacity building through different formats really. So we also, for instance, asked what support structures are available to strengthen learning and also capacity building for evaluation in your respective country contexts. And a variety were mentioned, for instance, toolkits, but also trainings. And really emphasized was also the informal and formal opportunities for knowledge exchange. Mm-hmm. So just as we are doing here today, and as we have been with Indeed in the past, our experts were really emphasizing how valuable it is to have outlets and avenues to come together, discuss common challenges, and maybe also practices and solutions that they have applied, and really emphasize mutual learning. Mm.
You've already spoken to a number of initiatives or steps, mechanisms that could be done to help improve capacity in the field. I wanted to ask you, having gone through this whole process and spoken with and engaged with experts and looked at practices from around the world, if you were to reflect upon where we are today and how we're approaching evaluation in the PCV field in Europe, what would be your recommendations? What do you think should be areas that we should be exploring to help improve our engagement with evaluation and our engagement with evidence-based policy and practice?
Well, generally that's a very interesting question, but then I would also need to know a little bit more about what is your motivation? Mm-hmm. Who are you targeting? Which capacity do you want to strengthen? In general, the indication from our survey is, again, experts really value the opportunity to exchange with each other. So that could be, for instance, a recommendation for decision makers, including funders, to really promote research conferences, for instance, workshops, webinars, any opportunity to have interactive elements, could also be trainings. But we've also seen in recent years an increase in development of toolkits, or sometimes also called guidebooks. And the advantage here really is they are very easily accessible. Anyone can pretty much download them from the internet. It's relatively cost effective and it gives a good overview of the basic foundational knowledge on evaluation. Ideally, you would complement them again with another support structure, could be trainings, to also deliver more complex understanding, maybe also more advanced understanding of evaluation, because these toolkits and evaluation guidebooks really target predominantly individuals that have no or very low understanding or also interaction with evaluation yet. So it's very a foundational first step. They could also be supplemented with evaluation databases. So sort of a collection of evaluation reports where you can look what are similar initiatives, What are maybe some of the methods or indicators that were used by others, and what are the learnings, and how can I apply that to my program?
That's very similar to one of the ideas that has been coming up in some of the Indeed discussions and spaces we've been engaging with partners. The proposal to create an evaluation repository, or a repository of evaluations themselves, evaluation approaches and methods within the field, and toolkits and guidance that can help people for implementing them. We have within Indeed the repository of risk factors and resilience factors, and we have actually developed the e-guidebooks and the evidence-based evaluation tool on the Indeed platform. You also spoke about conferences, toolkits, opportunities for sharing experiences, and one thing that we spoke of just a few days ago, the role that could be played by the creation of a community of practice of people working in evaluation in the field from around the world. Could you share your thoughts, or what would be the idea there?
Well, ideally it would be an opportunity for researchers, practitioners, but I think also really importantly decision makers and funders and evaluators. So really a diverse landscape of actors, which our survey shows are all involved in evaluation in different stages. So an opportunity for them to come together and, as you just indicated, discuss some common challenges, needs that are currently not being met, and really have an opportunity to come together and work towards more professionalization of the field and better understanding of the things that we are working with. Again, there's numerous opportunities to approach capacity building. We have a great diversity of support tools that we can choose from, but what is currently missing, in our opinion, is a better understanding of what makes each of these tools or instruments effective. So we know there's an increase in tools and support structures that is being developed. We see this specifically with the toolkits, where in recent years we have an increase of toolkits being delivered and implemented, but we don't really fully understand, or there has been limited research so far being conducted, what makes each of these formats effective, what are maybe the gaps or considerations that you should reflect on, both in the development but also in the implementation process. So I cannot give you a decisive answer on which of these tools is the best, probably a combination, and the community of practice can definitely be one of them. But it also means that we need to have a user-centric approach, what is really needed.
Sophie, I have to say that I find the work that you've been doing at PrEval to be so incredibly interesting. I would just like to say, Dankeschön, thank you so much for the work you're doing and for joining us for the Indeed Knowledge Series.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.